here. Boro, Dan, are we ready?
We are ready. We are excited to go. We just went live. So, Boro, really excited that you're here. Boro Wang, I'm going to read your bio today, and then we will go and we'll kick it off. I know this is different than our normal interviews. This is the Metaverse Masterclass, but I'm really excited for Boro because I think he brings a completely different perspective than some of the other guests that we've had. So, Boro Wang is the co-founder and CEO of Polar, where he and his team work towards his passion of empowering creators with the tools they need to create and share their identity with others. It was founded in 2015. It offers online photo and video editing tools that allow creators to put their own mark on their content. Utilizing computer vision and artificial intelligence to improve images and video editing, the platform allows users to create and share their own unique filters through its sharing ecosystem, as well as via users' own social media pages with personalized QR code and before and after images. Polar is committed to the creator empowerment and ensures that each user has the ability to express themselves through their imagery and videos, which I think is totally related to the creator economy and Web3. So, welcome, Boro.
Thank you, Daniel. It's very well said. I could just add just a little bit of a context of what we do. And we started as a photo and then video tooling company. And in 2018, we decided that we want to help our creators to be able to express themselves in a more scalable way. So instead of posting videos and photos, we want them to also be able to post their entire creative process. Hence their ability to talk about how they adjust their lights, how they adjust overlays or tweak their photos. And we develop a QR code format, and this format encapsulate all the different changes a creator makes to their photo and video. And today we have over 1 million QR codes generated on our platform every month. These are creators, influencers who just want to share to their fans. This is how I edit my photo. This is how I edit my video, and then they can sell these filters to their fans or just distribute it freely so that their fans can engage with them better, understand their aesthetics and their identity better.
Oh, that's very interesting. What was the reason why, with this new creators economy, can you tell me the backstory why you created this, aside from empowering people? To tell us more about Polar's mission.
So when we started the company, we thought from the perspective of what is the next generation of future entrepreneurs. Are they going to be tech workers? Are they going to be someone else? What kind of things they're going to create? In my generation, when we think about creation, we thought about writing apps, become app developer. But more and more often, just like millions and millions of apps are being published as app developers, we're looking at this transformation of content creators, where people start their YouTube channels, their TikTok channels, and they want to grow their career out of it, just like tech entrepreneurs. So that's kind of the perspective we have when we start a company, is how can we build a company to really serve the next generation of entrepreneurs and make them really, really successful.
Now, tell me, what are you excited about as we are heading towards Web 3.0? I mean, your mission seems to be really aligned. The whole concept of, everyone can be who they wanted to be, creators economy, everyone can make money. Tell us, what's your angle into that?
Yeah, for us, because we're a creative company, we think about creative identity all the time. It's sort of, everything a creator do nowadays, every comment, every act, everything they use is a reflection of their identity, including the filter they use on their photos, and then their life they're depicting on their social media. What Web3 means for us is really this concept of interoperability. It's so that when a creator does one thing, for example, you have a certain filter that you created for your photo and video, how does that same color aesthetic can transfer into a different scenario? For example, when you're also getting into a game that does world building, how can I transfer and link my previous identity that I built in different platforms, and then be able to put that all together, and then also putting your personal control into your identity. That's sort of how we think about Web3 and the impact to the creative ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely, because that is the number one problem with a lot of this virtual world. It doesn't communicate to each other. So that's really awesome. Now, Boro, Dan just mentioned you got funded $14 million. How is that journey getting funding this company Polar?
So when we last raised our Series A for around $11.5 million in 2019, and before we raised another $2 million in seed. When we raised our Series A in 2019, the investors were really believing in the potential for the company to build the creative tool chains. It wasn't necessarily in the NFT or the Web3 space. It was on the belief that this company, this team, can really figure out how to make the best tools for creators to express themselves. Now that Web3 became a macro trend, and we happen to have a really good match with what's happening in terms of creator success and creator economy. That was really kind of the reason why investors give us money. But it was not very easy, for sure. We had to go through a lot of pitch meetings, showcase our technology, and then at the time we already have 2 or 3 million monthly active users. It's a journey, but I think every company has to go through that process to get funding and be able to hire people and keep doing what you want to do.
Yeah, what advice would you give to anyone who's trying to raise money at this point? What are some of the learnings during that journey of getting funding?
I think having a strong vision, it's super important, especially for early stage VCs. They're really betting on the team, they're betting on the company, even if you don't have a complete picture figured out yet. But your conviction, your passion toward what's going to happen in the next 10 years, and be able to explain backward the step to step, which phase you're in, and how do you plan to eventually get to your vision. I think that's really kind of what matters mostly for early stage fundraising.
Wow, I really love that. Like, do explain it backward. I think that's the first time I've heard it. Dan, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely different. I think it's you kind of always hear the same story. Maybe people don't tell you the 100% truth on how they got funded or suggestions. So it's great to hear different perspectives as well. But I am curious, have you guys thought with how NFTs and a lot of what you've been talking about and doing for the last few years, I think it's becoming more and more popular and more a thing and more accepted now. Do you see anything with NFTs or anything in there being a part of the company in the future?
Definitely. So like I mentioned, we have over 1 million filters generated on our platform. We have more than 100,000 creators that actively create Polar filters on the regular cadence. Most of these creators today, if they monetize, they sell on Etsy, they sell on WeChat platform or Alibaba's platform in China. They don't really take any Web3 based transactions. They're still trying to just charge normally as how you sell. There's definitely limitations in terms of once someone, let's say if I just want to buy your filter, I want to buy your aesthetics. Once I get it, I can only use the aesthetics within our ecosystem. That's one limitation. You can't really use it. Let's say you want to wear your filter, you want to see the world in the VR. You can't do that. By hooking up our ecosystem to Web3 and blockchain, it really opens up a lot of opportunities for other developers to develop on top of what the fans on Polar already collected in terms of all the different filters. That's one thing. And the second thing is having NFT can help define the fair market price. Right now, a creator can decide, okay, like my filter costs $1 or $2. They can't quite reasonably expect whether it should be $1 $2 versus this is exactly one, say, token, and then the market can determine what that token price is based on supply and demand, and definitely will make the market a lot more efficient. The things we do want to avoid though is when we think about NFTs, especially for Polar, we want people to actually buying these polar filter NFTs in the future and then actually use it, versus like you want to like own it and then sell it later. So one way we've been thinking about is a polar NFT can be used for editing some other NFTs, right? Like because by definition, polar filter is a process to manipulate and change content. So you can imagine that that's more like a frame of art where you have the art NFTs and then you have a frame that change and decorate it, and you can like produce siblings or produce children with another NFTs. And I think that would be a very interesting direction for us as well.
No, thank you. And I know we're seeing a lot of the, and that's very interesting, by the way. I like, that's a good perspective around it's not about the buying and selling. It's less about investing and more actually utilizing the NFT for something. How do you see with all the virtual worlds, and there's so much talk around people wanting to create like clothing and fashion, but I'm not really seeing that many people in the virtual world, and even the avatars right now, they don't always look so lifelike, where I don't know, how much I'd want to put a dress and some shoes on them. Maybe in the future when things look better, but how do you see that being incorporated where people are buying like clothes and fashion? Do you think that could be something where within your organization, people could design those? And how do you feel about the industry just overall?
I think we're on the on-ramp to get to a place where a lot of the infrastructures, a lot of the experiences are just coming together, right? If you look back, virtual experiences 5 years ago versus today, with Quest 2, you don't have to haul a whole power cord and then everything's built in. The development is very fast. I think identity is really the biggest piece in metaverse. Imagine like you can be however you want, right? Like most people don't get to decide their gender, their height, their race when they're born. That's just how they're naturally be given, and that's their factual setting. But a lot of our societal issues, a lot of especially like younger generation, is not about like how I want to express myself. Right? Maybe there's a piece of clothes I can't afford in real life, but I can decorate myself however I want to express myself. So I think that's the true power. So I think it's an inevitability that we'll get to a place where you can build a very realistic experience of your personal avatar and being, that's your main identity, projecting yourself to the external world. But it will definitely take time. And because I believe in this freedom and free of expression of identity, and obviously a lot of developers in metaverse does. I think as the industry grows, you definitely see more as rendering capabilities, GPUs getting better and then smaller. I know like on full-blown PCs, like Unity and then some of the other gaming engine company can already do very, very realistic rendering of people. And I think that's definitely, if that's what people are looking for, they can go that way. Or sometimes people just want like more cartoonish, and that's totally fine too. As our capability goes up, in 10 years, 20 years, you won't be able to really tell apart. If you want to describe yourself or express yourself in a very particular way, it should be possible.
I'm kind of curious, with you having a lot of competitors in this space, how do you stay competitive and making sure, you're going to stay here for a very long time? As we all know, technologies get disrupted. It's just a matter of time. A big giant could just squash you. What do you do as a founder?
We currently do have a few two main competitors, right? In terms of ecosystem that allow people to make filters and distribute filters, there's us and there's Snapchat lenses, which is internal to their ecosystem, and then Facebook AR lenses, which allow creators to make like your virtual lenses. I think for us, it's really there's a few things. Is we're really catering to the Gen Z and Gen Alpha. A majority of our users are under 20 years old. And they like a more open and supportive brand that doesn't really try to dictate like what's beautiful, what's not. Our platform, we don't promote anything. We basically give the entire ecosystem to you. If you go to our app, you see like all the popular filters people made. It's all completely voted by the community out there. So we have a different philosophy operating that's more catered to the younger generation. And to defend against later, more upcoming competition, the answer is always a network effect. Today we have hundreds and thousands of accounts that publish and create polar filter. We already have a social graph of who is following whom, who is using filters made by which person, and how often do they create. We also run studies on the aesthetic categories, right? Like how many different categories of aesthetics and how people evolve over time. And for our fans, a lot of them have collected hundreds of filters, and this is their de facto wardrobe of their filters now. So owning that piece and then be able to keep that and help people continue to build up their identity and then rely on strong network effect. It's our way to fence off competition.
Thank you for that, Dan.
Yeah, I'm curious about, and it sounds like you were kind of ahead of the time, by the way. You were like a few years before the popularity of NFTs, you kind of were doing something already similar. So I'm curious around the creator economy. I know you do a lot with, you have a creator program. Obviously, this app that we're on right here has a creator program. LinkedIn has a creator program. So a lot of platforms are seeing that they have to do something. It used to be, the creator didn't really have much legs to stand on or much say. But now we can see that a lot of platforms, it must be that they're going towards this because they need more creators. And there's so many platforms fighting for the space of people. So how do you see this, emerging with this creator economy becoming more and bigger? Do you see a lot more companies starting to jump on this where they're actually willing to pay people and support people to do something on their platforms versus before where, we were just data for them?
I think for us, the way we think about creators is if creators are successful, we are successful. And the reason we have a creator program is mostly due to the fact that most of our creators, they're not the typical TikTok and YouTube creators, right? Like if you think about like TikTok and YouTube creators, they're more like extroverted. They have to, be comfortable from a camera. There's a huge population of more introverted creators who are quieter. They're not necessarily want to like do dances and stuff. And there's a lot of creators want to still express themselves, their identity. So they came to our platform. If I have 30 minutes, I can choose to create a filter for someone versus doing a TikTok dance. And then so we attracted a lot of the new mass of creators over the last couple of years. But then our creator program is really designed to educate them how to be better, because this is not something they can just learn from TikTok. We're basically trying to invent a new creative format and saying, hey, like this is how you actually make your filter look really cool. How does it work across the board? So that's one part of it. The second is we don't really serve the top % of the creators. I know like a lot of companies are thinking about, let's only serve the people who are already making money. For us, we're really here for the long game. So our creator program is trying to how do we get people who have 0 followers and no social cloud and get them, like teach them how to start to build their audiences. So when they do things really well, we feature them, we give them exposure and help them connect with their fans. So for us, the creator need is basically these two. It's they want to be educated, they want to be better, specifically for creating filters, and we provide that. And then secondly is they want to be exposed. They want to have access to fans. And usually, like every time you expose, we promote a creator, over a week, their filter can get like 200,000 to have 1 million downloads. And that's what we do in our creator program.
Let's talk about creator economy. And I love how you said, if our creator is successful, then we can be successful. This is something that Clubhouse needs to learn. This is something that they were doing it wrong. I mean, the last a year and a half, whoever dominated the space put so much time and effort to build a community, and then you get penalized. No one can see your room. I mean, it's something that's doing backwards. Like you put so much work and you're not getting the benefit or the fruit of your labor. I mean, you get penalized instead because they want to spread out to everybody. What's your take into that concept of like whoever is getting all the traction, then you kind of like, okay, let's like mute you a little bit so other people can thrive? How do you balance that as a founder, Boro?
I think a company first needs to decide who is your primary customer. in any creator company, there's always a two side, which is you have creators, you have audience. And some company decided, okay, the creator is actually my primary customer, right? Like, Twitch is a very good example. The creators' need is first and foremost, their need matters the most. And some company decided that, creator is actually the secondary customer, and then primary customer is the audience. And that completely changed how you function, right? Like, then it's about how to benefit the audience eventually, creating algorithm, rank and sort different creators, recommended creators, and then that will be that's not the interest of creator. Creator wants to be able to control their own audience, right? Like you hear, like another example is TikTok. Their primary customer is the audience. So creators complain like, I publish a video, sometimes my fan can't even see it, right? Like I don't really own my audience. So I think that's the thing. Like I found it's important to think about who is your primary customer, and then once you decide the primary customer, the features, the vibe and everything that you do is going to be different. And for Clubhouse case, I can't speak completely. I think it's still like evolving as a company. They're still trying to figure out. But the pain that Clubhouse creators are experiencing is definitely caused by their desire trying to maybe like have a little bit more emphasis on their audience experiences. But in my view, again, this could be philosophical. I think creators tend to know more about what serves their audience better than the company. And so sometimes your company can have a very strong opinion of, okay, this is what audience really, really need, and we want to like start to build up these experiences. We don't want to talk to creators. Let's just like build this, right? We have creators. We know exactly what audience is doing. That's one way that can like really push the company to be more of focusing on audiences and start to forget about creators. But the other way is, ask the creators, how can I, what would you do? Like, how do you serve your audience better? And then think that way. So ultimately, you're always serving the creator need, and and then the trickling effect is you're also serving, if you can serve your creator need, you're eventually serving the creator's audience need, right? Because if the creator's audience doesn't perform well, the creator is going to leave. So I think, like Polar as a company, we're more on the side of, okay, like our app not necessarily is designed to serve the audiences. We choose creator as a primary customer. We don't do anything if the creator doesn't think it's good, right? Like, we don't really monetize your ads. We don't really, because creator is telling us that's going to hurt their audience.
Yeah. And as a company, how do you make money?
So today, that's a very good question. So for us, we are the kind of company where we're trying to build the pie as big as possible and do not monetize until we feel the opportunity is there. Our our eyes on the whole marketplace where creators can directly sell filters to their fans, and then we take a pay cut, and then let creators decide how they want to monetize. But we do have a few stopgap solutions inside our app today that we are monetizing. Those solutions are not long-term sustainable. Those are just a self-funding measure. So we currently do license. So we're kind of like a little bit like a Spotify. We do buy out, maybe not Spotify, maybe some other like music label. We do buy out the right for some of the creators and their filters, and then we redistribute it to users as a subscription. But the reason I said it's a stopgap because it doesn't fully address the need of a creator, and we can only help a few creators. Most of the transactions or P2P payments are happening today outside Polar. They're happening outside platforms. So we're trying to bring some of that into our own platform and then make it more regulated. Our creators, some of the feedback is they constantly get scammed by their buyers, and buyers sometimes get scammed by creators or people stealing their filters after they bought it all the time. And that's sort of the direction we're going, is trying to regulate that a little bit and then build a business model around that.
I'm curious. Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think it seems so simple, yet so revolutionary to think, why don't we ask the creators? It seems like what most platforms, and I think, what Kate was saying, even I saw this with LinkedIn. LinkedIn took out of the 600, 800, whatever million people, they took 100 people and gave them access to an audio channel and maybe asked them what they wanted. But what I've heard is a lot of them aren't even using it. And then you have millions of other people that would love to use it, but can't use it. And I always found that really fascinating. So I enjoy what you're saying around you actually want to ask the people, talk to the people, and give the chance to. It's not about how much following you have. It's give the chance to people that don't versus, like you mentioned, the ones who are already making money, who already have the big following. But why is it that companies don't already think this way? Because I think you're the only one I've heard is using your creator program in the way that you are. Most companies do the complete opposite.
I think there's a little bit of time horizon and gold rush, right? So I think you see so many companies serving the top 1% of creators who already make money because there's money there. The business model is very clear. You can build a company. It's very competitive. You can build companies on tax services, borrowing and lending, and actual monetization, subscription. Like, it's all about that. But then when you happen to talk to a lot of the creator companies, especially on the top, they all have the same customers. Like who do you work with? It's always the 4 and 5 the same guys. So they're eventually gonna compete really, really fiercely. And that's one strategy to go, right? Like you're chasing after money, and then there's nothing wrong with it. But for us, we also saw that our DNA of a company, we're more of a creative tooling company. We want to invent new creative process, and then for us, we saw what's happening in the battles there. We don't want to jump into the same group. That's one reason that caused, like, we want to serve the up and coming, but then we also have a much longer horizon as a company, where we do believe, by helping the up and coming small creators, these middle class, quote unquote, will become a much more powerful force, when they grow up and when they're successful in the future. So that's what we're betting on.
I'm kind of curious, Boro, is this something you've been wanting to do? What was your background before creating Polar?
I was, this is my first company after straight out of school. I never worked in full-time.
I have to say that makes us feel very bad. This is your first company. You got $14 million funding. Like, that's very good.
It could be better, but yeah, it's doing all right. I also miss, like, what if I have a more regular job and might, like, balance my life a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, I study HCI and AI in Stanford. So HCI is human computer interaction. It's about how human and computer interact, basically. Yeah, I'm always fascinated by what makes people want to I guess, like, want to be creative, and what gives them creative confidence. When I was a kid, I always thought that, like, having good grades it's what all matters. I was born in China, raised there. But later I realized that I got a lot more satisfaction when I say I take a photo and then my classmate really like it than like I did a really good job in the exam and my parents like it. Because I feel like as a person, everybody can do the exam. It's uniform. Everybody does the same task. But as a creative thing, like, when someone like what I create, it's the validation of my creative identity. So that sort of really made me think, like, how do I can imagine a lot of the kids and a lot of the generation are having the problems is when they're growing, when they're 13 years old, like 20 years old, that their identity is just evolving. When that's the part where if you create something and people don't support it, you start to really, like, cave back and say, oh, maybe I'm not that good. And then, I think that's terrible. And then so that's sort of part of the inspiration of the company is, like, how do we give that creative confidence to people? And if you actually look at all the creators, you go on Instagram, search for Polar creators, 50,000 follow Polar creators. Each post, they usually receive like 3,000 or 4,000 likes or comments. And there's no bad mouthing, there's no negative, there's no personal attacks whatsoever. We've been trying really hard to make that happening. And so that's really the inspiration behind it. We're targeting that sort of group where they're teenagers. They're really trying to find their identity and be supported by others, and then give them a platform. And that, I think, that's the whole appeal of creating Polar Filter out there.
No, thank you for sharing, Dan. Would you mind pinning the link of the? I'm kind of curious now, and I think our audience are wanting to experience and explore the app as well. Now, I'm kind of curious, how do you feel that pressure with funding and maybe investors like, we need to make money. Like, what is that conversation like? Like, do you tell them like, oh, this is a long-term game? I mean, how do you report to investors? I'm curious.
Yeah, so we are very lucky to have very good investors to do a plug. So our Series A is led by Threshold. They were formerly known as DFJ, and then rebranded into Threshold. And our seed was invested by Pair. And so those investors, they're more founder driven. They look at like, what do you want to do? I think they all had success investing in the early like 2000s. Sorry, Pair is new, but like they actually have a lot of success in the early 2000s. They've seen some companies can take years and years, right? If you think about like Lululemon as a company, it take them like 15 years to eventually like got to where they are today. Some companies don't even figure it out after they go public. So there's a very long or business model is not fully matured after they go public. So there's a lot of sort of visionary investors who want the founder to have this conviction. You want to dedicate your next 10 or 20 years of your life, really believe in something. And then you have to be able to explain to them, like, this is your step 1, step 2, step 3. Usually it's like a 20, 30 steps for you to get where you want. So for our, board meetings and whatever, it is really like, has our strategy or vision changed? If it doesn't change, are we still on track, our steps? And if this steps is not related to monetization yet, then we set a goal. Let's say we want this to happen on platform. If it happens, then we're doing really, really well. So it's just to really create something innovative and disruptive. Having a very short time horizon of making money usually doesn't result like a disruptive innovation, right? You really have to believe in innovation, invest into it, and then see it grow in terms of the metrics that really represent growth, which not necessarily is making money. And then later on, you then deploy your strategy. It's kind of like Uber and Airbnb, right? Like, I think Uber is still, I don't know if they're profitable yet, but they have this vision and mission going on for this long time, and they're still pursuing it.
Jen?
Yeah. So I'm curious, and it's always wild, right? Like you're saying, some companies, they have to make profit, and some companies cannot make profit and go for a long time, yet they'll still get funding. But for your next round or for future rounds, are you thinking about how your company ties into Web3 as an additional point for new investors? And the reason why I say that is I'm seeing, I get some emails with newsletters every day, and they talk about where funding is going. And it seems like a lot of funding right now is going to any company that's within I'm just blanketing Web3 or blockchain, right? Just putting it all in one category, just calling it Web3. It just seems like so much funding is going in there. And a lot of it's coming where companies are maybe pivoting or adding in something about Web3, even though that wasn't their direction, but now they're getting funding. So is that something that maybe even every company has to think about in the future? What are your thoughts there?
That's a really, really good question. This is a debate we've been having a couple of times in our company. So right now, because Polar have a very strong community, we have a little bit over 5 million monthly active users on our platform. Web3 is still not a concept most of our users are familiar with. Our fear is if we introduce Web3, we'll introduce a complete new persona, which is speculators who are buying creator content, and that can drive the company into also weird ways in terms of priorities. So we'll be very, very cautious, right? Like when we interview our creators about their concept of Web3, these are teenagers, and then sometimes we hear like, oh, like, that's not good for environment, or like there are a lot of environmentalists, our young, minds and bright minds. So we have to be really careful. What does that do to our existing community? So we're not as flexible as some of the other startups who don't have, they have a blend, like a fresh state, and they can really drive like this is Web3. But that doesn't mean that we're not experimenting. I previously mentioned that there's definitely obvious advantages if we can convince our creators that if you're issuing NFTs, we literally have to convince our creators why the NFT is going to help your fans, because later on, at some undetermined state or date, they will be able to like plug in their filters in some other places. They have to be sold, and that's the hurdle we have to go through. Yeah.
Wow. And I'm kind of curious, majority of your users, are they in the US or kind of spread out? Where are they from? And 20 below something.
They're pretty spread out. You know, for video apps, US is our top country. It's for photo app. Asia is bigger, but it's quite global. And it's not like we are deciding which market to go into. It's just it happens that like let's say a Brazilian creator on Instagram can have a lot of US fans or Thailand fans, so they all like end up crossing talk to each other. It's hard to chase after which market is bigger. It's always evolving.
Mm-hmm. And what's the exit strategy? Are you wanting to be acquired, or in the long run, or what's the long-term game? You be staying, or?
I mean, for us, it's all from the perspective of how to make the biggest impact. You know, if there's a company that saw what we're doing, they want to join forces, and then if you believe that, you know, I think exit strategy is something that all entrepreneurs should be thinking about. I know like some entrepreneurs, they're just like, we just want to go public. That's the way we go. But I think as a mission for us is, you know, if there's a way to get millions of people be able to create their identity, and then, you know, billions to be able to easily consume those creative process. Yeah, like, you know, whichever way is the highest, give us the highest speed and acceleration is the best. But for us, so far, we are independent because we don't find any other company who will buy into the same mission. So for that reason, we will continue to, you know, to push. We're the very few company that's trying to like really push the thing to the mountain up top, and you know, and then so we're remain independent. If that's what it takes.
Yeah, Boro, how many years you've been running this company?
So around 7 years now.
7 years, okay.
Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting that you mentioned about the funding, and a lot of companies seem to be just jumping in, like you mentioned, the gold rush, where maybe they're not thinking about the long-term impact to their customer, because not everyone really knows about Web3, even, you know, cares. Like you mentioned, you ask one person about it, they love it, another person, they hate it, think it's a scam, then another person, they think it's something else. So and everyone has like their own perspective and experiences. So I think that's different than a lot of people that we've interviewed and stuff.
I want to clarify a few things. I'm not bearish on the whole Web3. I'm actually extremely bullish. You know, I'm just talking about the perspective of when we have a company with a huge mass on Web2 to start to like jump into Web3, we have to be a lot more careful. But there's no doubt that the whole concept of, like, I definitely feel like, you know, there's a lot of great stuff in the Web3 in terms of interoperability, in terms of decentralized network. But there's always like a group of people that their voice is louder, and then they can scream harder, and then they tend to be the financial advisors or YouTubers. So sometimes those voices can be a little bit like overshadowing the actually genuinely interesting technology stuff over there. But the cool thing is still there, which is, you know, you get companies who can access a decentralized database, remove the agents, right? Let's say like if I donated to wildlife and then REI had this campaign to give me a coupon, you know, on their gears. Now it's not possible. You have to build an entire company. How will they verify? The thing about Visa, right? Like, you know, today, like, if you want to go to Europe, I'm a Chinese citizen. Like, they have to check to make sure I'm a real person. I'm not a terrorist. So all these kind of things, you know, agencies, there's a complete like force with adoption of Web3 can disrupt that and make the world more efficient. There's no doubt about that. But I'm just saying, like, for our company, we have to be really, really careful.
Yeah, no, I love that, and that's basically what I was referencing is what you said there, and it's really going to be interesting around anonymity, around the, you know, like the virtual worlds, and will people actually be themselves? Will they put a filter to be somebody else? Well, every day maybe I'll be something different. So I could see, you know, this technology, how it expands, but going into that virtual space, I'm really excited to understand like, who are people? I remember back in chat days in like the 90s, I don't think a lot of people were actually who they were. You'd be like, okay, I want to be this person today. Because you're just a name, right? And you're just chatting. It's going to be fascinating with the virtual space, though, around, are you yourself? Do you use your own picture? Do you use someone else's picture? Do you change every day? So I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
Like Kate,
I don't think it's going to be that different from today, reality-wise. I mean, people put makeups on, people dress up, people have different styling for themselves. And I'm a different person in front of my family versus my friends versus my colleagues. So people have multiple identities that they create around themselves already in today's world. I think Web3 is just going to be make a lot more convenient, right? It's there's going to be more. It's just easier to do to maintain that. But I think the human nature aspect of like maybe it's fine. Like if we all live in the metaverse at some point, why does it even matter like who you look like in real life? Nobody's gonna know, right? And then you can have perfect control, and then and that's a lot of people in real life does that. They always have a mask on about who they are, and then they keep that for the entire life because that's the ideal version of themselves.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that too, because when we were opening this metaverse masterclass here, some people said, I actually feel so much better living in my avatar than me as a person. So it's kind of fascinating how people, how they wanted to be viewed to the world empowers them. But at the same time, there's an effect as a person like, I don't like myself. I would rather be an avatar. So I think finding that balance as that's fascinating to me.
all right. Well, I know we're coming to time, but Boro, we really appreciate you, though. Thank you so much for being here today. Really great perspective, by the way. Love the company, all the things that you've been doing. I mean, first company, got funding twice. Now you're building millions and millions of users and people every month. I mean, that is incredible. I think that's, most of us would, and some of us would dream to have success of that right at the bat, but it seems like you put in the work, you studied. I love the AI advancing technology many years ago, so definitely ahead of the game. Would love to hear you in a few years from now exactly where you're going to be. I'm sure it's going to be incredible, and where you're going to go and where your company is going to go. So make sure that if you're on Clubhouse, you can actually tap the top. If you're not, you can go to polarr.com. So polarr.com, and you can actually download the app, check it out. I was the last week or so when they reached out about yourself. I've been trying the app, and it's been quite fun looking at some filters and downloading things. So I appreciate that. But Kate, anything else you wanted to add?
No, I'm very curious to download the app, and I'm going to start working on it. Like it's very futuristic, some of the photos, so I can't wait to be creative. I have to say, I might have to ditch my Canva thing because I've been obsessed with doing that and using this Polar. It's really fascinating. I have to say, as a founder of a first company, Voro, you're actually very well versed, and you really were in there, going messy, and your company so well and your customer. And
yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, I've been doing this for so long. Like some people probably have done their third company. Yeah.
Anything else you want to add, though, in case they want to find you directly, personally, besides polarr.com? But for you, Boro, anything that you want to share for the end?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not huge on social media, but I'm pretty active on checking my LinkedIn's, and you can find me there. And then we have my email, bore@polar.com. Just if you have anything that you want to bounce ideas or chat, just send me an email.
Well, Boro, I think we need to officially invite you. I'm not sure if Dan mentioned, but we're putting together the biggest metaverse festival in Manila. So, that's like, I think that's your audience right there.
Yeah, happy to happy to check it out. Like I really enjoy the conversation. I mean, like you guys are like putting a very balanced perspective on what's
Mhm.
happening, right? Like being very cautious on the future while being excited simultaneously. I think a lot of the shows are very one-sided, and it's having that sort of neutrality and balance is important for this kind of
Absolutely.
conversation.
Yeah, well, we're honored having you here, and we enjoyed the conversation. And we really love listening from you. And hey, it's fair and balanced, diversity, different input might work some others, but we're here having this discussion. Thank you so much. Honored.
Thank you,
Yes,
guys.
thank you, everyone. Yeah, appreciate it.